Super Bowl halftime show.
Right. But it's not just random shapes they're picking. The theorists are pulling from actual occult history here.
They are? Like what?
Well, take the Eye of Horus, for example. That shows up constantly in these YouTube analyses.
Oh, the Egyptian symbol.
Right. In ancient Egyptian mythology, it was a symbol of protection, royal power, and good health.
Okay, so a positive thing.
Very positive. But in the context of these modern conspiracies, it has been completely inverted. Now it's read as representing omniscience and surveillance.
Like Big Brother. You like watching the masses.
Exactly. Or consider the Masonic compass and square.
Oh, that's the one that usually has a G in the middle, right? For God or geometry.
Precisely. In Freemasonry, it represents the great architect of the universe. But conspiracy theorists interpret it as a symbol of the elite engineering and, manipulating the reality we live in.
And then, of course, you have the inverted pentagram.
Right, which historically relates to the orbit of Venus. But it is widely read in these theories as a marker of prioritizing the material earthly realm.
Like wealth and fame.
Exactly, wealth and fame over the spiritual realm.
The source even brings up Stanley Kubrick's film, Eyes Wide Shut, as like the ultimate smoking gun for believers.
Oh, that movie is central to the lore.
Right, because Kubrick dies shortly after finishing it. Theorists point to that movie with its incredibly tense portrayal of masked elites doing these terrifying ritualistic gatherings.
Yeah.
They view it as an insider trying to blow the whistle on what Hollywood executives actually do on the weekends.
And Kubrick's reputation for obsessive detail only fuels that fire. The assumption is that he didn't just invent those rituals out of thin air.
They think he documented them.
Yeah, exactly.
But let me throw a wrench in this for a second.
Go for it.
Because whenever I see a pentagram flashed for half a second in a music video, my brain doesn't immediately go to global demonic cabal.
What do you think of?
I think of cinematic Easter eggs. Or just incredibly savvy marketing.
Savvy marketing, how do you mean?
Think about it from the perspective of a music video director. We all know that attention is the ultimate currency of the internet.
Sure.
If you know that placing a subtle, all-seeing eye in the background of a shot will result in 3 million teenagers freeze-framing your video,
Oh, I see where you're going.
posting screenshots to Reddit, and debating your allegiance to the Illuminati for weeks, why wouldn't you do it?
It's free engagement.
Exactly. You are getting millions of dollars of free viral marketing just by using some edgy historical iconography to troll the audience.
That is a highly plausible, very market-driven explanation. But to understand why the audience takes the bait every single time.
Because they always do.
They always do. And to understand that, we actually have to look at evolutionary biology, specifically a concept called apophenia.
Apophenia. Okay, that's the tendency to perceive meaningful connections between completely unrelated things.
That's the one. Our brains are literally hardwired by evolution to be pattern-seeking machines.
Okay, give me an example.
Sure. So if you were an early human walking through the savannah and you saw a pattern of rustling leaves, your brain had two choices. You could assume it was just the wind, which is a type 2 error, a false negative, and risk getting eaten by a lion hiding in the bush.
Right, bad choice.
Very bad. Or you could assume it was a lion, a type 1 error, a false positive, and run away.
So the humans who survived and passed on their genes were the ones who were highly paranoid and constantly connected the dots.
Exactly. Even if the dots were just the wind, we're the descendants of the paranoid ones.
That makes so much sense.
Right. So today, when we are looking at a chaotic, hyper-stimulating music video, our brains are naturally scanning for recognizable shapes. When you spot a triangle or an eye hidden in all that visual chaos, your brain's dopamine reward system just lights up.
Oh, wow. It feels like you've solved a puzzle.
It completely gamifies passive media consumption. It makes the viewer feel like a detective, like they're part of an exclusive club that has pierced the veil of reality.
And that psychological thrill is precisely why these theories are so incredibly sticky.
Absolutely.
But let's follow the logic of the conspiracy for a minute, just to see where it goes.
Okay, let's do it.
If we assume the elite are real, and they are gamifying pop culture by leaving symbols everywhere, how do they get the biggest stars in the world to comply?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because if I'm Beyoncé and I have more money and influence than almost anyone on Earth, Why would I take orders from some robed figures in a basement? It doesn't track.
Which brings us directly to the enforcement mechanisms outlined in the Sly Puzzle blog. The source explains that theorists believe compliance is guaranteed through extreme initiation rituals and basically a system of mutually assured destruction.
The initiation process. The article claims that to reach that absolute upper echelon of fame, stars have to undergo rituals involving intense humiliation or, even sacrifice.
And if we look at the psychological mechanics of why a secret group would use humiliation, it actually makes terrifying sense.
It does. How so?
It's essentially the creation of compromising material.
Oh, blackmail.
Exactly. If an organization forces a new recruit to participate in something deeply taboo, humiliating, or illegal, and they document it,
Then that recruit can never become a whistleblower.
never. Because exposing the group means exposing themselves.
It's like trauma bonding combined with an insurance policy.
That is a perfect way to describe it. The humiliation strips away the individual's previous ego and replaces it with an identity that is entirely dependent on and terrified of the group.
But the article takes it a step further. What happens when the blackmail isn't enough?
Right, when they rebel.
Exactly. What happens when a star breaks down and tries to step out of line anyway? This is where the source crosses over from Hollywood gossip into historical CIA operations.
Specifically bringing up M-Cultra.
Yes, M-Cultra.
This is a really crucial intersection in these theories because M-Cultra wasn't a conspiracy theory. It was a heavily documented, very real CIA program that ran from the 1950s into the 70s.
The government was basically trying to develop chemical and psychological weapons for the Cold War. Right?
Exactly. They used LSD, extreme sensory deprivation, and a technique called psychic driving, which was developed by Dr. Donald Ewan Cameron.
Psychic drive. Wait, that was the method where they would put a patient in an induced coma and play repetitive audio messages for weeks on end, right?
Yes.
Trying to completely shatter their existing personality.
They called it depatterning.
Yeah.
The goal was to wipe the hard drive of a human mind, essentially, so they could program a completely new persona, an obedient asset.
That is so dark.
It is. Now, the conspiracy theorists look at that verified history and argue that when the CIA officially shut the program down, the techniques didn't just disappear.
Oh, I see. They think the techniques were privatized.
Right. Privatized by these secret societies to use on unruly celebrities.
And the proof the theorists offer for this mind control is honestly where the conversation gets quite tragic for me.
The celebrity glitches.
Yeah, the glitches. They look at a star appearing completely disoriented on a red carpet, or repeating a bizarre phrase during a live interview, or just experiencing a highly publicized meltdown.
And they interpret those moments as the literal mind control programming breaking down in real time.
Right. The Sly Puzzle blog highlights several specific examples that fuel these theories. They point to Britney Spears' very public breakdown in 2007.
The classic example in these circles.
And Amanda Bynes' period of erratic behavior.
Yeah.
And the polarizing, often alarming public outbursts from artists like Kanye West.
In the lore of the conspiracy, these aren't viewed as psychological crises or mental health struggles.
No, they are framed as desperate, brave attempts by the celebrity to fight their programming, to rebel against their handlers.
Which is quite a leap.
It is. And I have to push back hard on this interpretation because, to me, it feels like a massive failure of empathy.
Really? How do you view those breakdowns, then?
I just look at the physical reality of extreme fame.
Think about the panopticon these people live in.
The constant surveillance.
Exactly. You have zero privacy. The paparazzi stalk you relentlessly. You are subjected to chronic sleep deprivation from touring.
And the pressure to constantly perform.
Right. You are surrounded by this entire industry ecosystem of managers, agents, and executives whose own wealth entirely depends on you working yourself to the bone.
You become a product.
You are essentially treated as a corporate commodity and not a human being. So doesn't that crushing, unrelenting pressure completely explain a psychological fracture?
It absolutely does.
Why do we need to invent CIA mind control when the reality of the fame machine is already so destructive? You know, you're touching on a really interesting concept in sociology regarding why societies invent myths in the first place.
Okay, tell me more.
Conspiracy theories frequently serve as a psychological buffer for the general public. We desperately need a locus of control.
A psychological buffer. Give me a real-world example of how that works.
Sure. Think about how people react when a seemingly perfectly healthy person suddenly gets a devastating illness.
Oh, right. Everyone starts grasping at straws.
Exactly. It is incredibly common for their community to immediately try to find a specific cause. They'll say, well, they must have lived near a toxic power plant, or they ate the wrong foods, or they used a certain product.
Because the alternative that genetics are just random and cruel and it could happen to literally any of us at any time is just too terrifying to accept.
Yes. We want a villain we can identify, because a villain can be fought. A random tragedy can't.
Oh, wow.
And the same principle applies to beloved celebrities. If Britney Spears is being tortured by the Illuminati with M-Culture techniques, well, there's a clear evil antagonist there.
But if she was driven to a breaking point by the relentless demands of the public,
then we are the antagonist.
we are the ones who bought the tabloids, clicked on the invasive photos, and demanded endless content.
Exactly. The conspiracy theory absolves the audience of our complicity in their downfall.
It lets us cast ourselves as the righteous internet detectives trying to save the star.
Right. Rather than acknowledging that our collective consumption is the very thing powering the machine that breaks them in the first place.
Wow. That is a staggering way to look at it. We invent monsters in the shadows to avoid looking at our own reflection in the screen.
It's much easier on the conscience.
But let's take the theory to its ultimate conclusion. According to the source, what is the end game here? If these societies are putting symbols in videos and mind-controlling pop stars, what is the actual goal?
The goal is you, the audience.
Me, us.
Yes. The ultimate objective of this massive apparatus is the psychological conditioning of the masses. The Sly Puzzle blog explains that celebrities are viewed by theorists as highly paid puppets. They trade their autonomy to become vessels for the elite's agenda.
Because the article claims that movies, television shows, and music are actually highly sophisticated tools of mass manipulation.
Yes, that's the core argument.
Theorists argue that Hollywood intentionally glorifies extreme materialism, hyperviolence, and rigid power hierarchies to, normalize these concepts in the public consciousness.
The idea is that they are teaching the populace to love the very systems that keep them subjugated.
Keep them distracted.
Exactly. You keep the masses distracted with shiny, materialistic goals and entertained by violence, and they will never look up to see who is actually pulling the strings.
And if a celebrity grows a conscience and refuses to push this agenda,
then they don't just lose a movie role. They get blacklisted, smeared in the press, or canceled entirely.
But here is where I really struggle with the mechanics of this conditioning theory.
Where does it break down for you?
Let's look at a claim like Hollywood is forcing violence and materialism on us to condition our minds. Is that really a top-down conspiracy?
You're thinking of market forces.
Yes. Consider the way algorithms work today. An algorithmic echo chamber doesn't necessarily have a nefarious conscious agenda to make you angry or materialistic.
It simply measures engagement.
Right. It feeds you whatever keeps you on the platform.
Because that generates ad revenue.
Exactly. So are the studios intentionally conditioning us to love violence? Or did they simply realize that when they make movies about violence, we eagerly line up and hand them billions of dollars?
It's a chicken and egg situation.
It really is. It's not a cloaked society dictating our desires. It's a corporate algorithm reflecting our own existing, sometimes very base appetites right back at us for a profit.
And that distinction, that right there, is the most important takeaway from this entire cultural phenomenon.
Also.
Because these conspiracy theories, wild as they get, are actually reflecting a very genuine, deep-seated public anxiety about influence.
The anxiety of not knowing who is at the wheel.
Yes. Even if the idea of a literal secret society sacrificing people in a basement is mythical, it functions as a metaphor for a very real concern.
A concern about media ownership, right?
Exactly. We live in an era of unprecedented media consolidation. 6 massive corporate conglomerates control almost everything you read, watch, and listen to.
Which is terrifying in its own right.
It is. A tiny handful of board members truly do dictate what stories get told, who gets funded, and what narrative dominates the cultural conversation.
So the conspiracy theory is just taking a really boring corporate reality.
Right.
Executives in suits maximizing quarterly profit margins.
And dressing it up.
Right, dressing it up in dramatic occult costumes to make it digestible.
Because it is much more cinematic to imagine a cabal of dark magicians than it is to imagine a boardroom of shareholders looking at a spreadsheet.
Yeah, a spreadsheet doesn't make for a good TikTok video.
Exactly. But the underlying feeling that theorists have, the feeling that they are being manipulated by powerful, opaque forces that they cannot vote out or control, that feeling is entirely valid.
The Illuminati is just a mythological stand-in for a monopoly.
That's beautifully put, yes.
Which brings us back to our mission for this deep dive. When we look at the core of the Sly Puzzle Blog's article, we have to acknowledge that there is no empirical evidence proving that ancient fraternities are running Hollywood.
None.
But the ingredients that fuel these theories aren't going away anytime soon.
No, they're baked into the system.
We still have the tragic, very visible destruction of celebrities under pressure.
Yeah.
We still have directors and artists using occult symbols for aesthetic shock value.
And the algorithms rewarding them for it.
Right. And we still have an incredibly concentrated media landscape that wields massive influence over our daily lives.
And that is exactly why engaging with these theories matters for you, the listener. Dismissing them as just crazy internet talk totally misses the point.
It's too dismissive.
It is. Analyzing them is a masterclass in media literacy and critical thinking. It challenges you to look at the media you consume and ask why certain narratives hook us so deeply.
Why we want to believe them.
Exactly. It asks you to investigate how power and leverage actually operate in plain sight in boardrooms and restrictive contracts rather than in, secret underground chambers.
It's about looking past the red circles on a freeze-framed YouTube video and asking the harder questions about fame, corporate ownership, and our own complicity in the celebrity ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Which leads me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. We spend so much time searching for hidden triangles and disguised eyes in our media, terrified of an elite group controlling our thoughts.
Right.
But what if the most powerful secret society manipulating our behavior today isn't a group of humans hiding in the shadows at all?
Oh, I like where this is going.
What if the real secret society is simply the completely opaque, invisible algorithms deciding exactly what content is appearing on your screen right now? Something to mull over the next time you find yourself endlessly scrolling.